Saquon Barkley stays in the NFC East. The Giants refuse to pay him the $12 million he basically would have landed with the franchise tag. They didn't tag him. He's now a Philadelphia Eagle, 3 years, basically $38 million, worth up to about $47 million. He's got $26 million fully guaranteed at signing. Bryce, considering that Saquon Barkley has missed 24 games over the last 6 years, do you think this contract is too heavy for the Eagles being in the position that they're in?
Well, when you look at the value, the running back position has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Remember, probably about
such a spread.
Maybe 5-7 yeyears ago, running backs were going through getting paid 40, 50, 60 million dollars.
Thanks,
and then the value has came down. I think that, Saquon, obviously he has major knee injury a couple of seasons ago.
Right.
Has kind of played
ACL,
through that. Seems to be getting back to what he was maybe prior to that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting because running the football wasn't necessarily the Phillies' issue last year. It was throwing the football. It was Jalen Hurts. Play calling.
Yep.
And so this move to me is just simplifies. This is probably what Saquon, because Saquon tweeted, said that he got the deal he wanted. That's why he went to Philly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because he got the money he wanted. And so for Philly, they probably just wanted more dynamicness. DeAndre Swift had a good year with Philly last year, but he's not dynamic. Saquon has more of a dynamicness to his game. And they probably looking at that as we can use him in a variety of different ways.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think for Barkley, this is a good opportunity for him to kind of, stay in division. Obviously, he'll have those 2 games circled against the Giants on his schedule.
Yeah.
And just kind of
hell yeah.
Exactly. You know how it goes when you go to a rival within the division. Like a lot of players have signed as team rivals this free agency so far.
Mm-hmm.
But Barkley for sure, he's looking to trying to show people that he can be the running back that he used to be. Now that he's gotten the money he's gotten, Philly's probably gonna, I would think, game plan a little bit more with him, doing more with him. And I think that, like I said, with the running back value going down, to me, no, it's not too rich, because it's like this is just setting what running backs like him, because some people may consider him still a top 5 back in the game. Mm-hmm. So if this is what you're getting for a top 5 back, then that's what's going to set the market for other backs that are considered around his range, especially in a draft class this year that's not that strong at the running back position.
Right. I don't think there's any first rounders that are expected to be running backs in this upcoming draft. Outside of Blake Corum and maybe a couple of other names, like we're not looking at a pretty solid running back class like we've seen in previous years. And, even last year with Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think Zach Charbonnet was in there as well. We saw some guys that are going to be pretty solid, Kenneth Walker in the recent years. But yeah, when you look at the contract and as I phrased it when I first pitched it to you, only because he's missed 24 games in total over the last 6 years, I think it's a little frightening. He does come out. I want to make sure I get this number right here. He does come out to get, he's going to make about 12.5 a year. And what's crazy is the Giants only had to pay him 12.1, but the Giants said, no, that's okay. We'll bring in Brian Burns, who I understand is a defensive end, but we'll pay him $150 million. What? Like, okay, that's totally fine. We'll take him from Carolina and pay him that type of money. But when we've thought about the star players on New York over the last few years, the focal point has been Saquon Barkley. And I understand they haven't had a lot to deal with. OBJ wasn't super healthy when Saquon was starting to come in, and they've lacked a lot of talent, especially at the quarterback position. Maybe the weakest roster or wide receiver room in the NFL. And then you look at the running back room now with Saquon gone. It was definitely crazy to be able to witness all that. And again, with him making 12.5 on the year, when you look at the spread of running backs, top 5 paid guys, you have Alvin Kamara at 1. That's kind of an outlier. Of course, you have Christian McCaffrey 2, Josh Jacobs 3, Jonathan Taylor 4, and then Saquon 5. Saquon's above a guy, like Nick Chubb, who might be able to get a new deal, but he is, surprisingly 29, and he's coming off of now an injury in college and also an injury in the NFL as well. And then it gets a little shaky. You got DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of young guys are really taking up some of the top running back spots in this league. And of course, there's respect for the guys like Derrick Henry and everything. But when you stack it up to other running backs, and I think where they're at in terms of years in the league, it does kind of feel right. He did beat the franchise tag number. He has a maximum of earning about $15.8 million per year on his salary, I believe, barring that all of his incentives and everything kick in, which would be the second highest for a running back in NFL history. if he hit an average per year salary of 15.833 million. And of course, he'll have to perform up to that expectation. But like you said as well, man, Saquon can definitely be in a top five position of running backs in the NFL. He has the capability to be that top 3 to 5 back in the league. We know how multifaceted he is. His skill set's amazing. He can go in between the tackles. He can bounce outside, hit him a screen, ask him to run a route. I haven't watched a whole lot of blocking tape on Saquon Barkley, but I'd like to believe that that's possibly a strong suit of his game. And if not, he makes up for it in other areas. But, this might shock some people. Saquon Barkley has rushed for 5,211 yards and 35 touchdowns in his 6 years with the Giants. He's also
Mm.
had 288 catches for another 2,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. So on average, every year, Saquon Barkley has given you about 1,000, 1,100 scrimmage yards. Now, we know he had the ACL and MCL injury. We know he's played a couple years hurt. And that's going to be the big decision here is if he's able to stay durable, how is this contract going to look hindsight when we're, 8, 9, maybe 10 games into the year and Saquon Barkley's got, possibly 100, 150 carries, whatever the math would turn out to be for a running back at that point, in the year. Do you think you would have liked to see Saquon go elsewhere, or do you feel like Philadelphia was maybe the best fit for him?
I mean, the way the running back market has gone, there's definitely plenty of other places he could have went. I could have saw Dallas getting the ball,
Definitely.
especially with
Yeah.
Tony Pollard walking. You could have saw obviously Green Bay cut Aaron Jones. So
Hmm.
if he was on the market at that time, that could have been a place.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, they're Bengals as well, even though they didn't want to pay big money for Mixon, so maybe
Right.
not. But from that perspective, just letting him go
Right.
could have opened something up. It was one of those things where really just depended which franchise and which team was willing to pay Saquon Barkley money to be their
Yeah.
top back and be a big part of their offense. I think
Hmm.
that was the big thing. And here's a fun fact. Last year, for top paid running backs, a lot of people don't know this. The top paid running back last year actually was not even a guy who played a snap. It was Bijan Robinson.
Hmm.
A lot of people didn't know that because I think his signing bonus was like 12 million his
Yeah.
first year. And then a
Yeah.
salary, I think, for the year was like a
Like,
million. So he
yeah.
made like 13, and that
Hmm.
was the highest paid. And people were like, what? So what he made this year is pretty much that's top running back money,
Yeah.
So
I think if you can make
um
above 10 million a year as a running back, is unfortunate as that is to say, I think you're in good hands in the NFL because I think only 5 or 6 backs in the entire league make above 10 million, let alone that 12, 13, 14, like some of the top guys.
Yep, pretty much. So that's kind of the big thing. Shaquan could have fit a lot of places. There's a lot of teams that probably, if you had an offensive creative mind, that could have did a
Hmm.
lot with him.
That's
But
what he needs.
realistically, he now gets out of New York. They've had a terrible offensive line, terrible quarterback. Now he's not going to be the primary focus of defenses. He gets to now have the ability in Philadelphia to now know they have Levante Smith, they have AJ Brown. They're not going to focus on me, and that can open up Shaquan to have a potentially really big year in Philadelphia.
Yep. Yep. No doubt about it. I stand corrected. Alvin Kamara was not the first in terms of money per year. It was actually Christian McCaffrey, but Alvin Kamara has the biggest running back contract. I believe the Saints did 5 years for 75 million. So an average
Mm.
of 15 mil a year. And that is painfully hurting us now. We know the Saints are in salary cap hell. And unfortunately, Alvin Kamara has fallen off year after year. I'm hopeful with Clint Kubiak, but let me not get too much in the Saints. I surprisingly didn't put them on this show. That'll be coming on Friday because we just had a ton of NFL free agency to get into. It would have been cool to possibly see him go somewhere else. I had the Bills on my list. I feel like the Bills have been a top running back destination for quite a few years now. Of course, we know Josh Allen, maybe more times than not has led the team in rushing. We know that Zach Moss has been there. I'm trying to think. Oh, James Cook. Of course, James Cook,
Mm.
he's a very solid running back as well. I'm glad that he's been able to get his lion's share of the carries, actually become that, maybe not bell cow back, but the first featured back in a, maybe running back or slightly running back by committee setup that they have in Buffalo. But I even said it last year, Saquon Barkley to the Bills would have been huge. I even talked about maybe Alvin Kamara to the Bills as well. Just a big running back move that they could make. So Josh Allen doesn't have to put up 44 touchdowns in a year like he did this year and turn the ball over 24 times like he did this year. Give him a little bit of relief on the back end. Give him that solidarity of just turning around, putting the ball in the running back's belly, maybe 15 to 25 times a game. Divide up your carries. It doesn't all have to be your running back one, as we like to think that, Derrick Henry would get 28 to 35 carries and run for 275 yards. Not everyone's like that. But it would have been nice to see some relief for Josh Allen. I had the Texans on this list as well. I was really hyped when I heard of Saquon possibly going to the Texans. I saw some of those reports leaking too, and I'm
Mm.
like, man, give CJ Stroud Saquon Barkley in his second year. He's already got Tank Dell holding it down. He's already got, Nico Collins, Noah Brown. Hopefully John Mechie's able to come around. Robert Woods is a pretty solid guy who can plug in and out of some offensive schemes. Obviously the Ravens picked up Jared Henry, but I thought that would have been a solid notion as well. And then of course the Cowboys, like you said, ever since he has
Mm,
gotten out of there, they pride themselves on running the football. Mike McCarthy loves to run the football, and while he does have a good to borderline great quarterback in Dak Prescott, it wouldn't have been a complaint to see Saquon land in Dallas. Now, like you said, it wasn't really the fact that Philadelphia didn't have a solid running back last year as to why they tailored off from the back end. It was more of play calling and horrible, horrible, horrible defensive output. So, with that being said, how much better do you think the Philadelphia Eagles really get with Saquon Barkley now being in there on that payday?
I think you get a little bit better. Obviously, when you sign a player of his caliber, you always feel like you get a little bit better, get more dynamic from that running back position. And anytime you can get more
Definitely.
dynamic, that's always big. It make the offense more big play potentially. But overall, I mean, like I said, there are some other things. Like I said, they need to fix. Like you said, the back end and the play
Oh, yeah.
calling, and then just obviously Jalen Hurts did not have his best season, so hopefully getting him back closer to what they were 2 years ago instead of last year. So
Yeah.
realistically, I think Barkley has the potential to have a big impact at Philly. I think he's going to be put in a position where, again, it gets cold in Philadelphia, and it may snow a little bit, and if you're going to have to run the football, I think a lot of people would want to have Saquon Barkley as their running back, and he's probably in that division, probably now still the best back of the division.
Hmm.
So
For sure. I
you
mean,
know,
Austin
so
Eckler could compete, but he's with he's with Washington, so
Yeah, then
be it
obviously
with
this isn't the
Dan Quinn
Austin
at the
Eckler
helm
from
and
2020.
Cliff
This is
Kingsbury.
different, okay?
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where I think Saquon can have a big impact for him. I just think it's just a matter of them just, using him the correct way. And like
Absolutely.
I said, him taking advantage of the opportunities he's now going to get with Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And when you look back at Saquon's stats over the year, I mean, he had 261 carries his rookie year, which is actually kind of crazy. 217 the year after that, injured, 162, 295, 247. So I believe we're going to see Saquon Barkley get over 200 carries, maybe in that 225 to 250 range. I think that would be a little much on him. Again, he has missed 24 games over the last 6 years. He's been mostly healthy in the recent years after the ACL and the
Mhm.
MCL injury. But, I thought DeAndre Swift was pretty good to, if not
Yeah,
great last season for the
he was fine.
Philadelphia
Yeah.
Eagles. They schemed him up well. Of course, the play calling tailored off as the season went on, and we saw things fall out of line. But DeAndre Swift was solid. We saw Miles Sanders the year before, who had 1,200 rushing yards. But ever since Shady McCoy left in 2014, which is crazy to say a decade ago, the leading rusher also for the Philadelphia Eagles in franchise history, they've only had two 1,000-yard rushers, and that was literally DeAndre Swift last year, Miles Sanders the year before. But in the last 3 seasons, Philadelphia has been eighth this year, fifth the year before, and first the year before that in terms of rush yards per game. They were first in the year that Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher at not even a total of 1,000 yards, which is a lot to do for a quarterback, 784. But I don't think and I love Philadelphia. I love Jalen Hurts. I think Sirianni's solid. I love the Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio hire. Maybe two of the best coordinator duos in the league, or one of the best coordinator duos in the league. And some people might digress, but I don't think this is going to really take them over the top or add. Let me say this: it will add another notch to their run game because, again, 2,100 yards, over 268 catches, and 12 touchdowns in 6 years as a running back in today's league, where the running back position isn't very valued and it is used, but we see touches. It feels like more times than not go elsewhere, especially to wide receivers and tight ends. I think that they could be top 10 in rush yards per game this season for sure. And I think that Kellen Moore is going to do a solid job with Saquon Barkley. And call me crazy, but I think Saquon Barkley could be in for a career year. I really think he could be in for his best year yet with Kellen Moore. I love that offensive coordinator sighting because if he was able to do this under Mike Shula, which was his first 2 years, Jason Garrett, who went there after he lost a job with Dallas, and then
Mhm.
Mike Kafka, I will be probably amazed at what he's able to do with Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore's not liked by a lot of people around the league. I thought he was pretty solid. I know he didn't have the greatest year. I believe it was the Chargers after he had left, the Cowboys, but he knows how to do his job. And I don't believe he's going to mishandle Saquon Barkley here.